Cybertruck. Let's talk about it. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio with your host, Johnny Hamburger. Let's get into it. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. GeekTherapyRadio.com for more information. I really got to revamp that website. Really what I wanted to do is when you go to GeekTherapyRadio.com is just the list of podcasts. Like, that's the first thing you see. Right now, the first thing you see, and it's been this way for years actually, because I don't pay enough attention to it, sadly, is a contact form. And I'll probably keep the contact form on that landing page somewhere noticeable, but I think for a podcast website, it probably pretty much should jump right to a podcast. Like, either the latest episode should be there available to play, if not the entire list right there on the landing page. So anyways, geektherapyradio.com. You can get in contact with me there. You can see my very much outdated merch store, which, by the way, somebody a while back ordered a mug, a Geek Therapy Radio mug off of there. And I realized, so I got the notification from whatever eShop handles the back end of that transaction saying, you've got some purchase. Somebody bought money from you. You've earned negative $3 or whatever, because I haven't updated the prices. I made the website before or during COVID, when prices were different and shipping was a nightmare, and inflation has occurred since then. More inflation has occurred since then. So I'm basically losing money when people buy stuff off of the merch store on geektherapyradio.com. I should address that. But it's fine. You know, after all shipping is said and done, I think I paid somebody $3 to buy a Geek Therapy Radio mug and have it shipped wherever it was shipped to. But anyways, it's there. Geek Therapy Radio website, geektherapyradio.com. You can also email me, Johnny Hamburger, or actually just Johnny, JOHNNY, at geektherapyradio.com. JOHNNY at geektherapyradio.com, and all the social media, of course, including YouTube and TikTok. TikTok I need to pay more attention to, but it's there. So Facebook, Instagram, X, Exeter, whatever you want to call it, X Twitter. I'm also on Blue Sky, Geek Therapy Radio podcast on Blue Sky. Colin from This Does Not Compute actually reached out, and he's like, hey man, Blue Sky gave me some codes to invite people to use it. Do you want one of these codes? And I said, sure, man. I got to get Colin on the podcast soon. There's plenty we can talk about. He's a friend and a friend of the show. This Does Not Compute has been great for Geek Therapy Radio. It's just been busy. And yes, I promise I'm going to talk about Cybertruck, but I don't release podcasts or new shows as often as I would like to. So I like to take some time when I do record a new show to kind of keep my listeners and my dedicated audience up to speed with what I've been doing. A quick recap is just work's been crazy busy. I work at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. I'm the YouTube manager and podcast producer over there. So if you want to keep up with what I'm doing day to day, week to week, whatever, subscribe to Houston Museum of Natural Science on YouTube. Also subscribe to Houston Museum of Natural Science podcast. So we have the Science Bites podcast, Tut Tut Now What, which is all about King Tut. We have Shark's Tooth Be Told, which is about Megalodon and sharks. What else? The Celestial Spectacle, which is about the eclipse we just had in October and the eclipse coming up in April, the total solar eclipses. So we got podcasts. Just search for HMNS in your favorite podcast player, or search for Science Bites, HMNS Science Bites, whatever you want to search for. If you listening to this podcast, I will leave links in the podcast description to all those, to the podcasts that I am constantly a part of and constantly doing. So if you want to hear more podcasts from me, or podcasts that I am narrating on or team narrating on, what I'm producing, just subscribe to those. Houston Museum of Natural Science, or HMNS, in your favorite podcast player. The one I update the most often is called Science Bites. So you can subscribe to all that stuff if you want to keep up with what I'm doing day to day. Also, I got a new baby on the way, due in May. Another baby boy. So I'm going to have Riker, who just turned 3. Going to have another baby boy in May. Work is busy, but things are good. And that, I'm just saying, I was reminded, there's a guy who does a Houston Dynamo podcast, and I follow him on Twitter, or X. And he said he had some haters because he wasn't releasing podcasts regularly enough. And I'm like, dude, forget the haters. I know you got life going on. He has a special needs child, if I understand it right, and work is busy. Like, dude, you don't listen to the haters slamming on you because you're not releasing a podcast every other day or every week like you used to. Life happens. The truth is that most people, I mean, it's like 99% of people making podcasts, it's not what they do for a living. And the fact of the matter, I don't make, how much have I ever made off of this radio show podcast? I think, truth be told, I think I've made $1,500 off of it. And that was back when I had an Audi sponsorship back, years ago when I was making a little bit of money from trying to help them sell e-trons. I had that sponsor for 4 minutes before, other people got involved and Audi pulled out. So that's how that works. Sometimes that's how radio works. But anyways, I have not made any money off the show, and I've got a job that pays the bills just like everybody else listening to the show does. So I can't release Geek Therapy Radio podcasts and radio shows as often as I would like to. That's just the truth of the matter. But that's, what I've been up to. I've been tinkering with a bunch of stuff. I bought more 5-inch studio monitors that I put out in the garage, because here's something that I've been geeking out about and something that I'm trying to get back into, and it's a tug on my heart. And I promise we'll talk about Cybertruck here in the next segment, just in a few minutes. In segment 2, we'll start talking about Cybertruck. But again, just letting you know what I'm up to. I've installed 2 5-inch studio monitors in my garage, and you might be thinking, why put studio monitors, like high fidelity studio monitors in your garage? They're cheap enough. They're like Personases, and I think they were $130 for a pair of 100-watt 5-inch studio monitors. They're out in the garage, so they're going to get kind of, humidity and heat and cold, and they're not going to last as long as if they were in a climate-controlled, recording studio like where I'm recording right now. I've got my Atom 7-inch speakers with the ribbon tweeters here in my Geek Therapy Radio man cave here, recording studio here. I'm not putting those things out in the garage, but I put those out in the garage, the Personas 5-inch Bluetooth studio monitors, get all the connections, because I'm trying to get back into what I used to do as a teenager, which is go outside, put on Stevie Ray Vaughan, blast them through the hi-fi stereo, plug my electric guitar into my pedal and my amp, and just rock out with Stevie Ray Vaughan. Rock out with some blues. That's what I've been up to. Anyways, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Don't go anywhere. Let's talk Cybertruck. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, geektherapyradio.com, and you can follow Geek Therapy Radio Podcast on all social platforms. Really just Google search Geek Therapy Radio Podcast and all the stuff will come up. Subscribe to me there. You can also follow what I'm doing. I work full-time for the Houston Museum of Natural Science. So, same thing, podcast, Houston Museum of Natural Science podcast. Just type in HMNS into your favorite podcast player. If you're listening to my podcast right now, I'll, of course, link that below in the podcast description, but that's what I'm doing. That's my full-time work. I am the YouTube manager and podcast producer for the Houston Museum of Natural Science. The podcast that I update the most is called Science Bites. Anyways, I said we talk about Cybertruck, and let's do that. As of recording, and I knew one reason I needed to record a show today is because Cybertruck has finally started taking deliveries. If you remember, Cybertruck was announced in 2019, and Elon Musk, the king of overpromising, I won't say under-delivering, but when you overpromise and then don't deliver, that is kind of under-delivering. So in 2019, he announced Cybertruck, the famous shattering glass kind of deal that happened when he was promoting Cybertruck, unveiling Cybertruck. 2019 is when that happened, and he promised 2022 deliveries. It is now December 2023, so he missed the mark by almost 2 years, which whatever, but don't promise 2022. Don't say you're going to deliver by a certain date and then miss that date. Just say we're aiming for, and maybe it'll take long. I was talking to my neighbor about this, and I'll get right back to Cybertruck. About he's a graphic designer, and he has to kind of train his clients to have realistic expectations about delivery. So when the client asks, "Hey, Al, when can I have these deliverables?" Al's not going to say, Al, my neighbor, 1 week. You'll definitely have it in 1 week. No, Al's been doing this for decades. He knows how the process goes, and he knows that there are 100 variables and 100 wrenches that can get thrown in the works, and different people involved in approvals and things like that. So Al has learned to manage expectations on promises and then over deliver. So you don't tell a client, yes, definitely 1 week, and then 1 week rolls by and the client says, where's my stuff? Yeah, something came up. Something always comes up. So manage expectations with clients and be forthright with them and be honest with them about timeline expectations. And then when your heart wants to say, I'll have it in 1 week, and it takes 4 weeks or whatever it realistically turns out, I'll have it in a month. And then you can be the hero if you get it in within 2 weeks. Let's say you promise a month, or you say it's going to be a month out. You say to expect probably around a month out, and then you deliver it in 2 weeks. You're the hero. You've over-delivered. Elon Musk doesn't do that. Elon Musk says, we're going to roll out Cybertruck 2022. And then end of 2023 comes around, almost 2 years later. Finally, we're getting Cybertrucks, not without a lot of criticism. I want to speak to that for a moment. I want to get into some specs of the Cybertruck, of course, what actually is being delivered, but to the criticism. It is totally okay to, and it's very fashionable right now, to criticize Elon Musk. If you're at some highfalutin, hipster coffee shop, you're not going to hear anybody singing Elon Musk praises, and I'm not saying nor should you. I'm not here singing Elon Musk praises. As a matter of fact, I just said he has a problem with overpromising. But while it's chic and hip to hate on Elon Musk, I've always been under the opinion of any artist, of any engineer, of any kind of creator, world changer, whatever, that the person and their personal kind of beliefs and their personal lives and everything should be held separate from whatever product they are producing or art they are creating. For instance, Willie Nelson, Texas legend. Everybody and their grandmother, no matter how conservative or liberal you are, loves Willie Nelson. Conservatives love Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson is a raging liberal. I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying his politics don't line up with his fan base. A lot of conservatives love Willie Nelson, and they give him a pass on his differing politics than conservatives. Because the music is awesome. Because he's a freaking Texas legend. Neil Young, not from Texas, does not get the same slack cut for him. Partly because Neil Young's music is not my cup of tea. But Willie Nelson is just as, if not more, well, not more, but he's very liberal. But he's a staple among Texas conservatives and Texas liberals. Everybody loves Willie Nelson, despite if they differ with his politics or worldview. So if it's possible to do that with an artist, a music artist, which I think it kind of should be standard. I don't understand why people stop listening to artists because they have different worldviews. Now, I understand if I hate to bring this up, like I understand maybe not publicly liking Bill Cosby stuff or not listening to Bill Cosby because of, well, Bill Cosby. I kind of get that, but I don't understand poo-pooing somebody's entire product line or entire work, somebody's work based on differing politics. If it's just merely different politics, it's no reason to throw shade on what they're creating. So all that said, it's very hip, very chic, very trendy to look around your echo chamber and poop on Elon Musk. I get it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. There probably isn't anything wrong with that. World changers and world leaders like this need to be held accountable. Billionaires need to be held accountable for their personal actions, and it's up. You have your freedom to disagree with their politics or whatever they're up to, buying Twitter, whatever their antics. But let's be objective here and not hold the Cybertruck as a product. Don't criticize the Cybertruck because of who created it. Let it just stand on its own merits or not stand on its own merits based on if it's a good product or not. Steve Jobs was a monstrous a-hole, but people line up around the block, including people who would disagree with the Steve Jobs politics and personality. They will spout out about it all, day long at Starbucks, but then they'll go wait in line for 2 days to get the new iPhone 15. The hypocrisy is astounding. But anyways, the Cybertruck, is it just a good product? Besides Elon Musk, whatever you think about Elon Musk, who cares? Is the product of the Cybertruck good or not? And of course, there's plenty of debate. There's plenty of differing opinion on that. But what I want to go over right now is just some of the specs and maybe some of my opinions on it. The first thing I wanted to talk about here is something that I didn't notice, admittedly, until just now. I'm looking at the Cybertruck specs. I'm on tesla.com/Cybertruck. And it's the range. For the most range you're going to get, there's 3 models of Cybertruck. Cyber Beast, which is kind of an awesome name. And then the mid-range is all-wheel drive. And then the lowest on the range is the rear-wheel drive. So Cyber Beast has 3 motors. The all-wheel drive has 2 motors. And then the rear-wheel drive has 1 motor. So Cyber Beast range. The range of the Cyber Beast is 320 miles or 440 plus miles with the range extender. Okay, the all-wheel drive version, which is the mid-tier, has a range of 340 miles and then a range of 470 plus miles with the range extender. Okay, what I admittedly didn't know until just now, and it's just me being distracted by things, was this range extender. I hadn't heard of that until now. Typically with EVs and plug-in hybrids and what have you, range extender means like a little gas engine, like a little 3-cylinder gas engine that kicks on after you've expelled the range of the battery. Your quote-unquote range extender turns on to keep you going. The 3.6 liter V6 in my Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid minivan, some people would call it a range extender, but really it's like a 14-gallon gas tank that turns on after the 30 miles of electric range has depleted, which means I can take Riker to and from school, but not worry if we got to drive to Virginia. New segment coming up. More Cybertruck. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. We're right back at it. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. We're talking Cybertruck. So last segment I talked about something that I admittedly wasn't familiar with until just today before recording the show. As I'm looking at the Cybertruck specs on tesla.com/Cybertruck, is this range extender feature. So three trim levels of the Cybertruck. You got the top trim level, which is going to be released and is going to be delivered as of recording right now to some people who have pre-ordered at least. Cyber Beast is top trim. That's what's available now. Then the mid trim is all-wheel drive. That's coming out sometime later. And of course, the cheapest trim is the rear-wheel drive, coming out way later, I suspect. The rear-wheel drive is going to be around $61,000. The top trim that's available now is Cyber Beast. That's around $100,000. Cyber Beast has 3 motors. All-wheel drive has 2 motors, as I believe here. And the rear-wheel drive has 1 motor. Now, the most range is going to be this mid-trim, the all-wheel drive trim. That has a range of 340 miles. And then it says 470 plus miles with the range extender. And briefly, what I was talking about in the towards the end of the last segment was typically range extender means like a little gas engine. If you look at other plug-in hybrids and hybrid cars, they refer to their 3-cylinder whatever gas engine as a range extender. It just kind of turns into a generator to keep providing electricity, and it means that you don't have to. Let's say you need to go to, in my case, I use a 30 miles of range or so in my 2018 Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid. That 30 miles of electric-only range covers the daily back and forth of Riker to school and my wife to work. It covers it completely. But since it has a big, giant 15-gallon or 14.5-gallon gas engine also in my 2018 Chrysler Pacifica, that means we can just drive to Virginia without worrying about charging stations and whatever, which doesn't make sense to hit charging stations when you have a plug-in hybrid with 30 miles of electric range. It's just good for the groceries, the day to day, and then you can just drive across the country without worrying it on good old-fashioned dinosaur juice. So range extender in typical hybrids and typical plug-in hybrids refers to a little gas engine. In the Cybertruck, though, it is a module or pod, whatever you want to call it, that slots into the trunk or the bed of the Cybertruck. It takes up obviously some cubic square footage of the bed of the Cybertruck, which I'll talk about all the specs here in a moment. But it takes up some of the room in the bed of the truck, but adds, what is it? Looks like 130 miles or something like that, more range, which, okay. I don't know how much the range extender costs. I can't see any of that right now. Let me see if I can do a quick Google search. I'd imagine, oh my gosh. Well, yeah. So I'd imagine it's going to be pretty expensive. And as I'm Googling here, I'm still not seeing a price on here. But so there is no real easy way to officially see the price, but with a little bit of digging and people speculating, and the best estimate is that the range extender, which just remember here, the range extender gives you like 33 to 38% more range. So 130 miles, let's say, of extra range for a Cybertruck. You want to take a guess? Want to take a guess on how much the range extender is expected to cost? $16,000. For an additional 120, 130 miles of range. $16,000 US dollars for the range extender. You could, I don't even want to tell you how much gas you could buy, how much electricity you could pump. Like 16, that is, I'm stunned. I'm stunned, but not surprised at how much the range extender is expected to cost whenever it becomes available. 130, you want 130 extra miles in your Cybertruck? $16,000 for the privilege. I don't have enough hair to pull out, and I just shaved my bald head anyway. So, like, here, let me just, I'm rubbing my, can you hear that? I'm rubbing my head stubble, my dome stubble. $16,000 for 130. Whoo! I don't know what kind of, I don't want to call him a dummy, but there's going to be people with more money. I don't know how, man, that's got to be quite a need. That's got to be quite a need to shell out $16,000 for 130 miles of range. So some of the features that might make this addition make a little more sense is that there's a lot of outboard energy flow. So you can charge the truck. Let's just start talking about the stats right now. You can charge, it says here, you can charge about 136 miles in 15 minutes because the maximum charging rate for the Cybertruck is 250 kilowatts max. So that means you pull up to a charger, sit there for 15 minutes, fiddling around on your phone, whatever. You get 136 miles for 15 minutes. I'm tempted to get into the logistics of EV charging and how I guarantee you 99.9% of people that listen to talk radio every day really have no actual practical idea of what living with an EV is actually like. Okay, I am going to get sidetracked for a second. 15 minutes to get 136 miles more range. That actually isn't bad. Here's the thing. I have multiple vehicles. I've got a naturally aspirated V8. I've got my V6 DeLorean, of course. I have the plug-in hybrid minivan, and then I have my fully electric 2017 Chevy Bolt. People talk about, oh, you got to sit there and wait. It takes so long to charge. Oh my gosh, you fill up with gas in 5 minutes and you're out, empty to full, and you're out the door. You hardly ever, unless you live in an apartment, which is granted, if you live in an apartment, having an EV is really hard to do for most people living in an apartment. But if you have a home, You don't spend a lot of time at public chargers. I have been at a public charger in the past 3 years that I've owned my Chevy Bolt fully electric car. I've been at a public charger twice. And even that was only for 10 minutes here and maybe 5 minutes there to get me an extra few miles just to get home and plug in the rest of the way at home, because that's what you do 99.9% of the car if you if you're a homeowner, is your car just sits there. It's plugged into the same 120 volt 12 amp outlet. It's pulling 12 amps from a standard 120 volt plug. It's like running a vacuum cleaner or a microwave. It just sits there. How long does your car sit in the driveway when you get home? Whenever you get home, how long is your car sitting there? 12 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, whatever it is. It's just charging the whole time. You're inside watching the Texans, watching the Astros, drinking beer, sleeping, making dinner, doing whatever you're going to do. Your car's just out there charging. So you're not spending. You're not hunting for a public charger. That's what people don't understand. It's not their fault. Just the passerby tuning into mainstream talk radio, MSTR as I call it. They don't get that. You're not hunting. You're not hunting for public chargers unless you live in an apartment and you can't be charging for the 12 or 16 hours a day that your car is just sitting there in the driveway. That's the reality. Every time, this is my personal anecdotal experience having a daily driver EV for the past 3 years. Every time I go out to my driveway, my car is full. It's just full every morning when I walk out there to get in it. It's just full because I leave it plugged into the same exact 120 volt outlet as a phone charger. If you have a garage in your home, you have 120 volt outlets around. You might even have a 250 volt outlet somewhere, even better. But you just leave it plugged into the 120 volt outlet, charging at 8 amps, 12 amps, whatever you set the car to, and it's just sitting there for hours and hours and hours while you're inside doing whatever you got to do. It's charging the whole time. It's like a little gas ferry that comes around to your driveway and just fills your car with gas. Yes, it's slow to charge, but you're not doing, what are you doing 12, 16 hours inside your house? You're enjoying your family, you're watching sports, you're sleeping, you're doing yard work, whatever you want to do. It boils down to this. Your vehicle is not being used for a very long time throughout a 24-hour period. In that time that it's not being used, 12 hours, 16 hours, whatever it is, it's just charging. So every time you go out to the car, even on a 120 volt outlet that every garage has, your car is just full or it's ready to go. It doesn't matter. You're not sitting there tapping your watch at a public charger waiting for your car to charge if you're a homeowner. If you're an apartment dweller, you might not have access to just trickle charging your car all the time. So yeah, you're going to be hunting for public chargers, but that's not the way it works for a homeowner with an EV. It's just always full when you go out there. I'm not trying to sell you on an EV. I'm just trying to dispel you on stuff you probably don't know if you listen to mainstream talk radio all the time, because they're not going to tell you that. There's vested interests in not making EVs sound appealing to you. Believe me. I wonder how much trouble I'm going to get into for saying that. But I don't have any, Chevy ain't sponsoring me, even though I have a Chevy Bolt and they sell Chevy Bolts. Chevy GM hates selling EVs. They hate selling EVs. They don't want me telling you, go buy a Chevy Bolt, because GM loses money on every EV they sell. I have to double check that. That used to be the case. But anyways, somebody trying to sell Tahoes and Suburbans and Silverados isn't going to want, the anecdotal truth about EV ownership. They want to keep selling you these cars that use gas. Of course they do. It's their incentive. Cybertruck. We're going into the third segment. It's the longest segment. Let's spend that segment without without my getting distracted. Let's talk about specs of the Cybertruck. Geek Therapy Radio. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. As promised, I want to spend this third and longest segment. If you're listening to this on the air or listening to the podcast, segment 3 is the longest segment. First segment's 8 minutes, second segment's 10 minutes, third segment is 11 minutes, fourth segment is 10 minutes again. So third segment, longest segment, let's talk about Cybertruck specs. And I'm going to try to stick to this, adhere to this as tightly as possible. Let's get into it. Okay, as I've mentioned, there are 3 trim levels of the Cybertruck. The only trim level that is available right now costs over $100,000, and it is the top trim. It is called Cyber Beast, which, side note, is an awesome name for a trim level of a truck. Cyber Beast. The mid trim level is called all-wheel drive, and the rear-wheel drive is the single motor version, which doesn't come out till 2025. But all that's available right now is Cyber Beast. So Cyber Beast has 3 motors, all-wheel drive is 2 motors, and rear-wheel drive is 1 motor. The mid-trim level all-wheel drive has the longest range at 340 miles or 470 plus miles with that extra bed battery pack range extender. Let's go over Cyber Beast specs. That is what is available today for, I don't know when it's going to be delivered to you if you actually went on to Tesla.com and ordered it. I don't know what the delivery time is, but some of them are being delivered as of now. It's December 1st. We're finally seeing some Cybertruck deliveries here momentarily. They are shipping apparently. Cyber Beast specs of the Cybertruck, the top range model, the top trim level. Performance specs. This is tesla.com/Cybertruck. Range estimate 320 miles with the range extender 440 plus miles. Acceleration 0 to 60. Remember, this is a pickup truck. 0 to 60, 2.6 seconds. Under 3 seconds in a pickup truck. Under 3 seconds, 0 to 60. That is madness. Of course, it is all-wheel drive, and the top speed is 130 miles per hour. I don't want to get sidetracked. I think there should be multiple gears for electric cars. It's just not just one motor spinning up to its maximum RPM to do 130 miles an hour. I think like at 60 miles an hour, it should kick into a long range, higher gear, basically. Just like you're shifting a manual gearbox in a normal car with a manual transmission or even an automatic transmission, it goes into the highest gear to get that gear ratio. So the gas engine is sitting there at 1500 RPM while you're cruising at 70 miles an hour to get the most range out of it. I think the same thing should start happening with EVs if they haven't already, because the top speed of the Cybertruck, I guarantee you, is electronically limited, digitally limited to 130 miles per hour. Left fully unleashed, or if you added another longer gear in there, Cybertruck would do, the Cyber Beast trim level, the Cybertruck would do 200 miles an hour easy. I mean, even with aerodynamics, the horsepower of this thing, what was it, like 845 horsepower? It's over 845 horsepower. The actual website does not give you the horsepower numbers for the Cybertruck, but I'm going to give you them anyways. All right, so I found specs, and I had to pause the recording to verify this and make sense of what I was looking at here, because the numbers seem wild, just crazy. But these are reputable outlets that are reporting these numbers. So, Car and Driver, Motor Trend, and I'm here on The Verge, which has a really nice detailed list of the specs between different Cybertruck models. Especially on The Verge here, it says Cybertruck, Cyber Beast, 2019 versus 2023. So let's go down to the torque, which I was talking about. First, horsepower, actually. In 2019, it was promised up to 800 horsepower. What it actually turns out to be for the Cyber Beast trim level of Cybertruck is 845 horsepower. Top speed 130. Torque in 2019. This is where the numbers. This is where I had to pause the recording here to go cross-reference and double-check. And I'm going to put an asterisk by this also, even though I'm seeing this on multiple reputable websites and outlets that these numbers. Go check it yourself also. Please verify this for yourself also. But according to these outlets, torque in 2019 was supposed to be up to 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. In 2019, the Cyber Beast trim of the Cybertruck was going to have up to 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. In 2023, they're saying the torque. Are you ready for this? And this is why I had to pause the recording and verify this, and why I'm telling you to go check yourself, even though I'm checking 3 different websites and outlets that are saying this. The torque in 2023 for the Cyber Beast is actually 10,296 foot-pounds of torque. 10,296 foot-pounds of torque. unbelievable. The max towing capacity of the 2023 Cybertruck is 11,000 pounds. The payload, which is what you can put in the bed of the truck, is 2,500 pounds. And let's start talking about numbers with clearance and battery capacity and weight and all that good stuff. So the Cyberbeast, 2023 Cyberbeast pickup truck. Let me check my recording to see if I have enough time here. Yes, I'm in segment 3. Click back over to my Chrome tab over here. Battery capacity is 123 kilowatt hours, which is a big battery, which makes sense because it's a pickup truck. The range is promised in 2019, said range was going to be 500 miles. The actual range is 320 miles or 440 with that range extender on that 123 kilowatt battery plus the range extender. All right, so the weight of the Cybertruck is 6,843 pounds. So almost 7,000 pounds, 6,800 pounds for the weight of the Cybertruck. The height is 70.5 inches. That is 4.5 inches less height than the first prototype in 2019. The length is 223.7 inches versus the 231.7 inches in 2019. So the Cybertruck has gotten a little bit smaller. The width, it's actually gotten wider since the prototype. The prototype in 2019 was about 80 inches. The actual 2023 Cybertruck is 86.6 inches wide. With the mirrors on, which the mirrors are removable because they have cameras in there, you can remove the mirrors, but with the mirrors on, it's 95 inches wide. So mirrors off, 86.6 inches. Mirrors on, side mirrors on, 95 inches. The bed is 6.5 feet. It doesn't say here on this website what the bed length is, but Marquez Brownlee has measured it. It's an easily over 6 foot bed. The cargo capacity is 120.9 cubic feet. That's up from 100 cubic feet of the 2019 prototype. The front trunk or frunk, yes, it has it. It's not very big. The front trunk, it can fit 2 carry-ons, as MKBHD has demonstrated. The onboard power, which means this is the power that it could put out through its charging port to either charge another car or power your house if you have the right kind of circuit breaker attached to your house. 11.6 kilowatts. So we can output 11.6 kilowatts out of its charging plug, or it has 2 120 volt plugs and a 250 volt plug in the bed of the truck. That 250 volt can do 9.6 thereabouts kilowatts output. So it's like a beefy dryer plug in the back there. Horsepower, 845 horsepower. Top speed, 130 miles per hour. Torque, 10,296, according to all reports now, 0 to 60, 2.6 seconds. Towing capacity, 11,000 pounds. Max payload, 2,500 pounds. You can put in the bed there. Ground clearance is 17.44 inches in extract mode, whatever that means. I assume that means it's highest ground clearance mode because it's adjustable height. Displays, I don't really care about displays. 18.5-inch center console display, and then 9.4-inch display in the rear, whatever. Wheels are 20 inches. Drag coefficient is 0.34, which is about what a DeLorean is, by the way. It's very close. Base price is $100,000. $99,990 I'm seeing here. The segment's coming to an end. Let's continue this in the 4th segment. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. We're talking Cybertruck. Let's keep going. Don't go anywhere. I totally messed up here. This is the 4th segment. I'm getting my segments wrong. I was so excited. That's it for Geek Therapy Radio today. I will talk about other trim levels of the Cybertruck, but they're not available yet. And a matter of fact, the lowest trim level ain't even going to come out until 2025. So all the specs and details and everything I've been talking about is what's currently available, which is the Cyberbeast trim of the truck, $100,000, and all the stats I just mentioned. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of giving love, and you are worthy of receiving love, and you are worthy of your own self-respect. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.